I'm Zoe Williams, the voice of reason. If your relationship is in trouble, I'm the dude to call. Has your soulmate become your cellmate? Does black love still exist? What are your bedroom turnoffs? Fantasies and fetishes. Financial infidelity. I'm dating a fat person. Are they worth the wait? Trust me, this is gonna be crazy.
How about the heavy stuff?
The child wasn't his, and he still had to pay child support.
It's a very heated topic.
How was that right?
Mama's baby, daddy's maybe.
I just have so many questions I want to ask you.
I just like to kiss a woman's ass. Is there something wrong with that?
Damn.
He told me he had a vasectomy. I'm pregnant.
Betrayal has been committed.
Hit you with the bad pipes routine.
How does he maintain his humposity?
He likes it when it pinches my nip.
Why can't you open up, brother?
I'm a karate man. Karate man rules on the inside. They don't show their weaknesses.
Yeah.
How do you write women so well?
Zoe Williams,
Reason and accountability.
the voice of reason. Yeah, it's Monday. You already know what it is. Zoe Williams, the voice of reason. Hot Button Radio. Hey, always coming with the topics. Always coming with the heater. We about to get our girl on in a second, Veronica Conway. You already know how we do. We like to tackle tough topics. We like to get at ya. But guess what? Before I do that, it's important for me to promote a couple of things. Not as long as the Zoe What Show. Really quickly, Wednesday. This Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be opening for a good friend of mine. His brother's a raptivist. A rapper, producer, actor, activist. Hey, it's real. We're going to be Wednesday, 7 to 9 p.m. That's Wednesday, February 8th, 2017, 7 to 9 p.m. You can leave that beat banging. I like that. You can leave that beat slapping. Okay, we cool. David Banner, activism in post-Obama America. It's going to be at the California African American Museum. You're going to have to visit, what is that? The CAAMmuseum.org for the most updated information. You can RSVP to CAAM programs at 213-744-2024 or RSVP at CAAMmuseum.org. Wednesday, 5 to 7 p.m. I'm at 9 to 7 p.m. What that means is I'm not going to be here Wednesday doing the Voice of Reason because I'm going to be there opening for David Banner for his lecture, his speech, Activism in Post-Obama America. California African American Museum. It's going down into town. It's going to be fire in the minds of men. You know how we do. You know how we get down. We try to make a serious impact. Woo! It's going to be crazy. The next thing I need to promote. I'm going to be at Kentucky State University, KSU, HBCU, historically black college. I'm going to be there, right? The day before Valentine's Day. Getting it in, I'm going to be doing a healthy relationship workshop with a lot of the students there. Mr. KSU, my homeboy Maurice White, they brought me back. I was there last year. I'm coming back to do this lecture. It's about to be cold-blooded. Yeah, about to be crazy at KSU. And then the other thing, very important. Listen, look at our shows like PBS. You know how PBS does those drives? We need you to support this movement. We need you to back these programs that are going to be taken off the air. Well, I need you to do the same. Go to my GoFundMe page. That's www.gofundme.com/Zoe Williams. Z-O Williams. www.gofundme.com/Zoe Williams. And promote, and really help us manifest the birth of the VOR radio network We want to do one ourselves. We need your support. We need your backing. Get there right now. Donate. For Black History Month, we're trying to raise $25,000. We should be able to do it. It's the shortest month. We're already a week in. We need your help. We need your support. We need your backing. Cooperation, collaboration, communication. Let's do it right now, today. I'm Zoe Williams. This is the Voice of Reason. And we do topics, man, that are... Man, we did a topic today that was crazy. But we do topics that challenge. If we don't challenge you, we're not doing our job. It's just really that simple. So with that said, it's a caller participation show as well. We need you to participate. The number to dial is 323-230-4610. That's 323-230-4610. I want to hear from you because today's topic is probably going to hit home in some way, shape, or form. Wow. How to fire your toxic parents. Wow. A deeper look at the process of expelling negative and or limiting beliefs inherited from toxic parents. It's a tough topic. True or false? Another fairly common source of toxicity in parent-child relationships is addiction and its corresponding denial and secrecy. Have you had one of your parents force you to keep a secret that you knew was wrong? Somebody else got to know about this because we need help. But I'm getting forced and pressured by my parent to keep this a secret, to deny it. Have you ever been at the family dinner and they talking about some shit that's happening in your household, but you've been told, prepped, conditioned, bullied into keeping quiet? Toxicity. We got callers' questions. Call us 323-230-4610. How to fire your toxic parents. How do you break up with a broken mama? How do you break up with a broken daddy? Ugh. At what point is a mother or father's love, at what point does it become hurtful? Eek. When is it okay to let go of a toxic parent? Ugh. If you don't let go of a toxic parent, are you subject to hold on to a toxic relationship? I just don't know what to say. True or false? Toxic parents treat his or her children in such a way as to make those children doubt their importance, their worth, and that they are deserving of love, approval, and validation. I don't require validation. I don't need approval. I didn't get it from the people it mattered most. Getting it from them would have mattered most. So if I'm not getting it from them, I don't put any value on getting it from anybody else. Eek. Or even worse, I seek those situations where I'm approved of. I need validation. I need attention. Sometimes when you get it at home, you don't need it somewhere else. It doesn't matter in other places. Yikes. Woo. When is it okay to let go of a toxic parent? How does an adult child heal from life with a toxic parent? 323-230-4610. That's 323-230-4610. How to fire your toxic parents. A deeper look at the process of expelling negative or limiting beliefs inherited from toxic parents. You're listening to the Zoe Williams Voice of Reason radio show here on Dash Radio. For people who don't know how to get to Dash Radio, all you have to do is go to dashradio.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and there it is, hot button. Click the hot button. We're live at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think we got Veronica Conway on the line. Yep.
Yes.
VC.
What's up, baby boo?
You know how we do. I come to you with a mental semen seed of an idea. Veronica lets me plant the mental semen seed into her mental
Womb.
Her mental womb. I'm allowed to fertilize some things. And then we come up with these topics.
Little topic babies.
Little topic babies. We have topic children. I call her and be like, what you want to talk about? Well, what's the framing? Well, here's that seed, baby. This is what I was thinking about. Well, this is what I was thinking about. And then we come with it. How to fire your toxic parents, man. Damn. Veronica?
Yeah.
What do they do to us that will require us to seek parental termination? Speak on it, VC.
Well, I want to set some frame around it because I think we have to understand how it functions before we can answer some of the deeper questions. So the way that it functions is that even between the ages of 0 and 7, all of your imprinting happens, right? So you're walking around your environment and sometimes even in your mom's womb as a living, breathing receptor of everything that's happening in the environment. So everything gets in. All the experiences, all the vibrations, all the feelings. Like I just did today, for example. I was working with a colleague of mine, and we dealt with, she realized that she decided that she wasn't good enough in her mom's belly. Right? So we actually went back to that moment where she decided that. She discovered that at her birth, because her mom had been carrying that imprint, and she remembered that when she was born, she carried that imprint. So we went back and undid that. We just reprogrammed it so that because it was affecting her business. Right? It was affecting her ability to make money in her business. She's trying to go to $100,000 a month in her business. And this was the blockage, right? So what happens is between the ages of 0 and 7, and sometimes they get passed down intergenerationally. And I'm going to say that as Black people, given our historic experience on the planet, in our DNA, there's a lot more wounding and trauma that gets passed down because our historical experience here on the planet has had so much wounding and trauma in it. And science is now discovering, which I've known forever, which is that wounding actually shifts the DNA. They studied the Jewish community, they studied communities, and realized that all that trauma and decision-making actually distorts the DNA, and it gets passed down in the DNA. So we are oftentimes responding and acting from decisions that were made within our parents' time, that get handed down in the DNA, that get handed down from past lives, that get handed down, or that we experience between the ages of 0 and 7 in this lifetime. So all of that just sets the frame. Like, we're in an environment where we're constantly, before we've developed what they call a critical factor, to block things out and make conscious decisions, we're absorbing all of these events. And then we decide who we're going to be as a result of those events. I'm ugly, or I'm fat, or I'm dumb, or I'm people are better than me, or right. That's what happens. I even regressed a client who realized that she's an executive, that her challenge came from being a twin and fighting for space in her mom's womb.
Wow.
And a lot of the issues that were impacting her today as a vice president of a major global firm that it was the source of it was fighting for turf with her twin in her mother's womb. Right? And so we're operating from this, and we all know we're operating from it. So we can't change at the conscious level that which is unconscious to us.
Wow.
Right?
Crazy. Veronica, I've got questions.
Yeah.
I need you to field them. And I'll jump in. I'll jump in when I get ready, but I just want to throw some lobs your way. True or false? In a non-toxic parental relationship, the feelings of all parties are rated and taken care of equally. So by asking that, true or false, in a non-toxic parental relationship, the feelings of all parties are rated and taken care of equally. They're valued equally. They are considered equally. Is this leading us to believe that in a toxic relationship, somebody's feelings are prioritized over the other? And when we're dealing with toxic parents, are you telling me the parents put their feelings over the children? Speak to that.
Well, most people walking around are really in an ego-identified state. So most people have a difficulty seeing outside of themselves because they're identified with their fear and with their trauma. And they make decisions from the fear and the trauma. They're identified with the ego, right? Mm-hmm. So understand that a parent, if there's toxicity and parents don't have a holistic view of their children, like a humane, total view. In other words, if they're parenting for themselves to fulfill certain wounds in their self, or right, or they have unreconciled stuff in themselves, then there's going to be distortion in how they parent. I think the best parenting is when you're parenting for that human, when you're parenting for that child, when you're actually designing how you raise them in a way that benefits them. But a lot of times you deal with parents that are not parenting for their children. They're parenting for themselves. They're either raising a friend or somebody's going to take care of them in their old age.
Or a man.
Or they're going to get back
woman.
to somebody. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. They're like parenting for themselves.
Wow.
But you do that if you haven't reconciled the darker parts of your ego.
Wow. That's crazy to me. Listen, would you say you're starting off on the wrong parenting foot? And I want you to go deeper into this. Of course you are, but I want you to go deeper into it. Starting off on the wrong foot by having a baby so you can have someone to love you. Is that starting off in a toxic space?
Absolutely.
Can you go deeper into that phenomena?
Well, they've talked about it, especially in the inner city and urban communities with young women that have babies at a young age. And a lot of times they're in such traumatic environments and they haven't experienced any sense of love and consistency. So they have babies so that they can experience that unconditional love. Wow. So that's very common and very prevalent, and it's absolutely the absolute wrong way and the wrong reason to parent. It's not about you. Once you have a baby, it ain't about you no more. It's really about that person. But I think that to parent powerfully, you have to have reconciled your own inner issues, your own inner wound. And that has to be a part of what you commit to. Because understand that when we talk about imprinting, that children absorb the vibration of what's in the environment, and then they eventually assign words to them. So think about it. The reason that most people don't, when they say, what do you remember? Right? If you're just talking to somebody, like, how old were you? You usually start remembering things consciously when you have language, because language couches experiences and events, and you begin to assign meaning to them. So that's a couch, and that's a dog, and that's a chicken, right? You begin to, and so that's where memory begins to organize and integrate. is from language. So, but children are always experiencing vibration. So it's like the reason that I ended up divorcing my husband. I didn't want my kids to live in an environment where we called it love and marriage, but it was really stain. It was really undermining. It was really jealousy. It was really gestures. I didn't want them to have that vibrational experience and call it love and marriage. Because in their psyches, they would grow up and call love and marriage that pattern. They wouldn't call it by its proper name. Right?
Jeez.
So you have to call things by their proper name. So when you say do as I say, not as I do, right? Humans absorb at the energetic level the vibration of their experience, and what we call it is how they end up defining it. Does that make sense?
Yes. This is crazy right now. You're telling me that some women, just listen to this, Veronica, some women have children become mothers as a coping mechanism?
Yeah.
That's crazy right now. Mom, which feeling is stronger? Your love for me or your hate for my father? Get to your phone lines right now, 323-230-4610. We're talking about toxic parenting. Shit. Toxic dads, man.
Don't let him kick me off the phone line.
I'm not going to do it. All
right.
Toxic dads, man. Woo! They bad too. A toxic dad will always keep a daughter as a kid in his mind. And sometimes that gets in the way of her maturation. Moms do it too. You gonna always be my baby.
Ooh, you want a deep thing on that? I
do.
I'm about to scare y'all, but don't be scared. So the way that Chama describes it, and I've actually experienced this directly. So I only speak usually what I've experienced or observed directly. But so Chama talks about how, to your point, about how daddies attempt to keep their girls' children. The Chama talks about how, as a woman is coming into maturity and adolescence, that her body begins to produce a nectar, right? Basically, orgasm fluid in her body. And as she comes into sexual maturity, she and even younger, she's orgasmic. She is triggered and impacted sexually by the opposite sex, right? If that's her thing. If she's impacted by the opposite sex, then she's going to have experiences where she comes into contact with men. She is impacted by them sexually, produces this nectar inside of her. She's impacted by her father sexually because she doesn't. You don't differentiate yourself. A woman is just going to respond to masculine energy sexually in some cases, but that gets suppressed in our society, right? So that all that nectar and fluid gets repressed and suppressed. So the Chama talks about how a woman, when she starts reaching maturity, creates what's called daddy's nectar, which is a nectar that she creates as a reaction to her father's sexuality. Because as she's coming into her sexuality, she's having an experience. She doesn't know what to call it. If nobody helps her assign the meaning to her experience, she's just having this experience. And what happens is, at the time of her maturation, what the father usually does, unless he doesn't, is he begins to push her away because he doesn't want to be perceived as engaging with her sexually, right? And nor should he. He's not meant to do that. But he pushes her away and leaves her sort of on her own, out in sort of the cold, because of him wanting to draw the boundary around her sexuality, but with no explanation to the meaning. So she ends up being in a posture of what I'm going to call hankering. There's something that she ends up longing for, that if her father was actually equipped to to assign meaning to the experiences that she's having, she could actually reconcile it. But if he steps back and becomes absent in the parenting process and doesn't help her understand what's occurring for her, then she has to make it up and find a way herself. What it ends up creating is what I'm going to call hankering. And so when women end up in a hankering posture, then they end up looking for validation, approval, and they try to get it done through sex because it originates in sex.
Oh my God. Hold on. Just hold on. Yep. Shit, I got to take my jacket off.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck is going on. Because I don't know how to, I don't know how to feel. I'm conflicted. Like what? What type of nasty wisdom? Like nasty wisdom. I'm confused. Shit. I need help. I don't know what that means. Well, I don't know how that feels.
I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help
you. I'm
trying to help you.
I've heard you say this before, and I've always been a little dirty. Just dirt.
Right, because what?
What's going on?
Because we look at that as like a molestation thing, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how things function. Right? Until we understand the way humans function, then we can't address our dysfunction.
So how does a father say, because to me what you were saying, I had to get past the nast of it. There was a nast on it. I had to get past the nast. Now, to me, that comes across as a lack of knowledge on a father's part. Like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how that feels. Get away from me. Go. And normally in a normal situation, quote unquote normal situation, you just send her over to mom, and that's mom's time to get her prepared to understand and deal with whatever, transformative space she's in at that time. And dad is kind of on the outside looking in protector role, which is fine. My question to you now is, how does a conscious man who knows, this hankering you're talking about, who's aware of that consciously, how does he engage his daughter and help his daughter understand some things that are going on without being nasty?
Right. So that's the thing about having that's the thing about having truly open, conscious dialogue, and it all has to do with intent. In other words, for a woman to come into her natural maturation, she can't just have the conversation with the feminine. She has to, because she's going to be interacting with the masculine. So the masculine, the divine masculine, the male principle has to come in and be in a strong masculine stance, not afraid, but in his divine masculinity, and have the real conversation about what she's experiencing, so that when she goes out into the world, she knows what to look for. Because if he just shuts it down, which is what most men's default, well, she's becoming sexual, I don't want to look like I'm attracted to her, I'm going to leave her out there to dry about it, and I know that she's aroused, I know she's having feelings, I know that she's right, but I don't want to touch it because it looks, like you said, nasty. If he were to go in and have honest conversations about what her experience, what's coming for her in terms of her experience, now she's getting clarity from the masculine. And it's what she needs. The reason that she produces this nectar that goes unfulfilled, but then she goes around to men to look to try to solve it, which ends up making her make bad choices in men. Because she's doing it from a place of longing and a place of trauma and distortion, not out of her fullness and her awareness and her sense of self. And the masculine has to play a role in it. And if he abdicates that role, then, and just says, well, I'm going to protect you, but protecting you is this, and it doesn't take into account what's actually transpiring in her. See, because if he can just witness that and make that okay and not make it a shameful, dirty thing, then neither will she.
Yo, this is heavy business, ladies and gentlemen. You're just tuning in to the Voice of Reason. Zoe Williams, Voice of Reason, here with my female counterpart. I bring her in. She's the Barry Bonds of the situation. I'm the Dusty Baker. Hey! I love bringing her in here, man. This is great stuff. Veronica Conway on the line. You're on Hot Button Radio, Dash Radio. Today's topic got real deep right there. Probably deeper than I wanted to go. Oh, how to fire. Let me just frame it and then come back to you. How to fire your toxic parents, a deeper look at the process of expelling negative or limiting beliefs inherited from toxic parents. Now, you spoke of a non-nasty, dirty, engagement between dad and daughter.
Yeah.
But what about the real toxic side of it where motherfuckers take advantage of that? Because molestation is big.
Well, I understand that.
And that's something that's not spoken of. So you got to counterbalance the spirit side of a conscious dad aware of what his daughter is going through to the demonic dad who can't help himself and takes advantage of his daughter and then harms her in that way, in that level of toxicity. Speak to that.
Right, and I'm not giving permission to the distorted side of it. I'm not saying that because, there's sexual feelings that go unreconciled that you get to act on those, because a part of emotional maturity and a part of parenting, quite frankly, is acting on behalf of the child and not yourself. In other words, prioritizing the child's needs above yourself. However, you think about where that distortion comes from. Right? You think about sexual distortion in general. You think about it in the Catholic Church. You're talking about taking the most powerful force that the universe and God gives us to get things born on the planet. It's this huge channel. It's an ocean. And you talk about distorting it down to a little river or a little creek because of shame and guilt and all the things that we're programmed with around sexuality. Well, once you narrow it down, then what it always leaks out with the ferocity of the ocean. That's why it ends up becoming molestation. That's why it ends up becoming, because the daddies that are engaging in that are unhealthy because they have unreconciled sexual stuff because nobody ever sat down with them and helped them get clear about their sexual urges and the naturalness of them and a way to deal with them. So the beat goes on, right? But all distortion comes from denial.
All distortion comes from denial.
Yes.
Yes. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, Zoe Williams, we're about to take a quick break. I gotta let you come up for air. It's a lot of hot monkey lava getting slung around in this mug.
I didn't even know I was going to talk about this.
Hey, look, a lot of wounds are getting opened up right now, and I think it's important that I think you got to do this. But when we come back, why are the majority of child abuse cases against mothers? We're talking about toxic parents. How do you break up with a toxic parent? What belief system could they have taught you that is so bad that you got to divorce your mama or your dad? Yeesh. The voice of reason is crazy right now. We'll be back in 2.2 seconds. Don't leave. We'll holla. Deuces. Ladies and gentlemen, we back up in here. This is a tough topic. I see my social media is crazy right now. Facebook is lit. What up, Facebook? I see y'all. I see y'all out there. I know what it is. Twitter is on fire. Twitter is always on fire. Listen, if you want to follow the storyline of the show, the narrative of the show, you got to follow me on Twitter at Zoe Williams. Now, part of my method here is I develop maybe 300-400 questions per show. Wait, let me get focused. Let me come back. Let me borrow that from Jamie Foxx. Let me get focused. Let me come back. Welcome to the Voice of Reason with Zoe Williams on Hot Button Radio, Dash Radio. I want to hear from some wounded hearts out there. Wounded hearts lead to wounded wombs and wounded penises and wounded relationships. Come on now. I want to hear from some of those wounded souls. It's a tough conversation, but we gotta have it. And I don't care. I don't care that you don't want to talk about it, but there's no accident that you're listening right now because I know you're listening. We gotta have this conversation. We're talking about toxic parents. How to fire, how to break up with, how to divorce a toxic parent. What is toxicity? You know what toxicity is. Are you that mother or father who holds on to their child so much and so tightly that you can't help but break them? You're hurting them by holding on. You know what I'm talking about. Emotional enmeshment. You all in a mess. Enmeshment. Listen, there was a show where it was like a black bachelorette. It was on one of the, I forgot what it was called, but it was all black. I don't know what it was called, but it was like a football player, and he had like all of these different sisters, and his mama was there. She got to sniff out everybody, and then you could see right there the dynamic between him and his mom was contentious. Like, mama, let me do what I'm supposed to do. No, you and my son and mine ain't gonna be. Hey, whoa. That's a toxic relationship. Right? You should have done your job well enough that your kid's life is on autopilot under his own control. If you still have to be the CEO of your child's life when they're an adult, you raised them wrong. 323-230-4610. We talking about toxic parenting. What about that know-it-all mama who don't know nothing? Ooh, only mama. My mama said alligators are mean because they're ornery. If you was raised by Bobby Boucher's mama, call in right now. 323-230-4610. Veronica, when we left, we were talking about the high numbers of women who commit child abuse. Ooh, broken relationships after divorces. I got the kids now. Wow, can we talk about that? Why are the numbers so high in favor of women?
What, in terms of them abusing children?
The devil, yes.
Well, I'm assuming, and I don't know the stats on that, but I'm assuming it's because they are usually in the most proximity to children. In other words, if they have anger issues and they're unresolved and they don't have any tools by which to reconcile those, and they are the primary caregivers, right, then they're going to lash out on that which is near. I mean, right? I'm assuming.
You look like your daddy. You just like your daddy. Come on, Veronica. Let's not act like we don't know that this doesn't happen.
Yeah, listen, I would never say that. I would never say it to my children because I didn't want my children to be like their daddy. Nor did I want my daughter to choose a man like her father and to actually tolerate the type of behavior that he engaged in. So I was very clear to actually, I had to be very clear to actually train them to see, to not accept his dysfunction as a pattern in their lives. Right? I had to be very clear about that. Like my daughter shouldn't marry it, and my son shouldn't become it. I was really clear about that because of the level of dysfunction. So I think that women have to again reconcile and come to terms with all the unresolved anger and rage and powerlessness. Understand that lashing out comes from this overwhelming sense of powerlessness. People that lash out feel powerless, so it's a way for them to flex power.
Wow. This is tough. This is tough, man. Now let's get to the meat, to the core. What are some tips for reconciling and letting go? Maybe reconciliation isn't a part of it, but maybe letting go and forgiving so your spirit is whole. How do you break up with bad mama and bad daddy? You know the movie Bad Santa? Bad Mom and Bad Daddy. We need to break up.
It's one of my favorite movies, actually, of all time.
So what are some of the processes here? How do we get it started?
Well, I think if you want to do it intentionally, I had to divorce my mom at one point because she was so toxic, right? And it turned out that she needed to get on medication. That she literally had an imbalance in her chemistry, her biochemistry, that caused her to be very toxic and negative, and right. And I had to say, when my kids were young, listen, if you cannot show up here and bring that to this table. If you're going to continue to do it, then you can't come here. So she had to go away and do some soul searching, get on medication because some depression is biochemical. And that she could be whole, and so I had to fire her literally. But it ended up being good because she could do some soul searching. I think that what it does for the individual that's willing to do that, you don't necessarily have to send people out of your lives. But I always say you never reach emotional adulthood until you have the freedom to fire your parents. And what I mean by that is the freedom to say, whether you approve of me or not, I'm okay.
Wow.
Whether you validate me or not, I'm whole.
Wow.
And until we have the courage to actually live inside of that, I don't believe that we reach emotional adulthood.
Let me say this really quickly. Here's the book right here. This is why I say people should read it. The Relationship Dismount. Okay? The Relationship Dismount. Period. Let me tell you why this is an important book to read. I wrote it. Go to my website right now, IamZoeWilliams.com. Let me just say why this is important. In the book, I borrow relationship as a mirror. That is a concept from world-renowned philosopher J. Krishnamurti. See, sometimes we're blind to our parents' abuse, neglect, disrespect, marginalization. We're blind to that. So guess what happens? We get in a relationship with someone else, and what we think is wrong with them is actually the issue we're enacting out that we got from our parent. Relationship as a mirror. We attract the same kind of person our parent was. A lot of times you see women are dating their dad, the type of dude he was, the type of dude he is. They'll get that lesson coming. You understand what I'm saying? And oftentimes we'll blame the person. Oh, there's something wrong with this brother. Something wrong with this dude. No! You wouldn't even resonate with me if the lesson in me wasn't for you. Right? You can't even see your mom unless you go through hell with me. You can't even see your dad unless you go through hell with me. And people don't understand that. That's the spiritual action of relationships. Sometimes I'm blind. We're blind to our parents. We don't know. We just see them as the caregiver, the lover, the nurturer, even if it's a broken kind of nurturing. You understand? So we got to get in an intimate relationship so we can then go back and not only assess who we are, molded by them, but who they are, who they were when they brought us up. Man, this is a cold game. We tend to model everything that happens in that house. Whatever conflict resolution style, whatever communication style, whatever religious beliefs, whatever cultural beliefs, we model everything from them. And then we take that to our relationships, and then it gets triggered. Well, it's getting triggered because it is a seed that blossoms into a lesson. And you have an opportunity to graduate from the mediocrity of the flaw you inherited or repeat it. Oh, man, this is cold.
Or rebel against it.
Or rebel.
I rebelled against my dad. Which is still the same side of the coin. I rebelled against my dad.
Wow.
Marrying my husband.
Oof.
Right? I rebelled against him because you gotta understand, I came up in one of the most intense environments. I challenge anybody that hasn't been in a war zone, because I was actually in a war. I mean, being the Black Panther Party in the 70s, in a communist collective, with all the intensity, with all the guns, with all of the being hunted by the FBI and the CIA, you know, that was my early childhood. And so when my dad went to prison when I was 7, I spent a lot of my teen life recovering from all of the trauma of those events, right? But understand that I chose a man that seemed to be my daddy's opposite, right? Safe. Turns out after we were married, found out he was Christian. I didn't know that. He didn't tell me that before we were married. He's from a big family. It seemed really stable, and it seemed like the antithesis of my father. So safe. What I thought was safe, I thought meant sane. Right? I thought it safe meant sane. I was a letter off. But it wasn't. It was a reaction to all of the intensity. In other words, after coming through such an intense experience as a child with all of that imprinting, right? Running from the cops, going to school under an alias, all of the intensity of the revolution.
Wow.
I was trying to get some safety. And so I latched onto the first man that looked really safe, thinking that he was sane, but he wasn't.
Veronica, we've got to go deeper. It's Dante's Inferno. Let's go all the way to the lowest level of the Inferno. Are you telling me that the parent who teaches safety, the pursuit of safety, is teaching toxicity?
Well, it depends on what you mean. So, safety is a state. It depends on, tell me what you mean by that before I answer.
Watch it. See, I don't want to give up my answer. I don't want to influence you. It's a loaded question on purpose.
I get that.
Because I want you to handle it.
Yeah, ask the question again.
Okay. You were talking about the safetiness. Right?
Right.
You know, you were pursuing safety. Safe meant sane.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And all I'm going to position it this way without giving up what I want to say about that. Is teaching the pursuit of safety in intimate relationships a form of toxicity? From parent to child.
If it's fear-based, if in other words,
I knew you would get it.
Safety is a state of being, right? You can be in any environment in the world. I mean, and it's the meaning that you assign to it that has you. I mean, Nelson Mandela assigned a different meaning to being in prison than most people assign to it, right? Therefore, his safety was internal. Right, the same with Elie, the guy that was in the concentration camps, Elie Wiesel. Right, so safety. So if people design reactions that are fear-based, so that they can appear safe or seem safe, then you're never safe. So if you look at, let me just go out on a limb here. You look at why people voted for Trump, right, and those voters, and if you do any research on them, you understand that they love authoritarianism. They need Big Daddy to come in and be strong and say fuck you and da 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 da. But if you peel back the onion behind most of those evangelicals and the people in the mid, if you peel back the onion on that, a lot of them they don't let any new information in that conflicts with their worldview as a form of creating safety. They don't let in other races into their environment. Everything that is other is considered bad. And so they've created the ultimate safety, right? I'm sure they do it around their relationships so that nothing bad can get in. Well, that's not really safe. Creating the bubble doesn't actually make you safe. I don't care what the name of the bubble is. I don't care if you call the bubble Christianity or guns or whatever. It doesn't really make you safe. Safety is an internal state of being. So yeah, you could say that that safety that's derived from a fear-based posture is in fact toxic.
Wow. Do you understand what? Listen, wait. Do you understand what you just did? Because this is exactly what I knew you would get to that.
All right.
Our guy, Dr. David Hawkins, right? He passed in 2013. He wrote the book, Power versus Force. He wrote the book, The Way of Surrender, Letting Go, The Way of Surrender. He's got a bunch of books. He said, you know, we talk about this all the time. He created that consciousness grid, right?
Yep.
In the book, he says 0.4% of the billions of people on planet Earth will ever get to a consciousness level where they experience unconditional love. He said the majority of the planet, in the high 90s percentile, are vibrating on a level of fear. This is a fear-based planet. He said the average person vibrates on his scale, calibrating the numbers, 100 represents fear. He says the average person is around 108. Vibrating in fear. Now, listen, come on now. The highest part of the scale is Jesus, Buddha, Krishna. They're vibrating at 1,000, so much so that their bodies can't contain all of the energy that they are. In the book, he also broke down that there's 12. You can call them monks. You can call them cities, gurus, whatever. 12 people on the planet Earth who are vibrating at 700 or more, and they're counterbalancing the fear in the planet to the point where their vibration is so high it has raised the overall average of the planet to 207.
Yeah.
So when
Metallica's probably in that mix somewhere.
Right.
Close to it.
So when you say, listen to where I'm going with this fear thing as toxic parenting. How many of us will lie to our children to keep them out of what we think is harm's way? How many of us will manipulate? How many of us have shamed our children under the guise of protecting them, under the auspices of protecting them? Can we be honest here right now? I'm calling out toxic parents. Get at me. 323-230-4610. Go ahead, Veronica. I know you're itching to jump in.
Yeah, well, that is true. And so when I talk about the reason that Najama can actually suck light into women, or
say what?
Of them,
say it again.
The reason that I talk about how Najama can suck the light into women and dismantle their energetic gunk through the act of sex, even at a distance, even with a room of 60 women around the world in Australia, and he's sitting on a Skype camera impacting them from here. That's what I'm talking about in terms of firepower. That's what's possible, but understand what that takes to accomplish that. People don't believe that that's possible. I've seen him do it every day. I've seen other wizards do their version of that every day. And so, but the thing is, it's hard to even catch it unless you raise your vibration enough to even come into contact with the frequency band, because that exists on a band.
We're going to bring him back.
Like the radio.
Veronica.
Yeah, like the radio.
Veronica, we're going to bring him back. We're going to bring him back up in here. We're going to bring him back so the women in here, because it's a new batch of women. They got to earn their stripes before they get into the Nachama zone. Right? Right.
So I'm saying, so he's a person that can sit and broadcast and heal whole grids of the planet just with his meditation. Right? There are people that can do that. And so most people are, in fact, operating at low levels of vibration. And let me tell you something. Oh, man. Keep this. There's a guy that I invited to come to the show in a couple of weeks. I was talking to today, Gerald O'Donnell, and he's been my mentor around remote influencing and remote viewing. This dude is so deep that the government brought him in to teach the government people remote viewing. You know, because they do that in the government.
Let's get him.
Yeah, he's going to come in a couple of weeks, but he taught me how to do remote viewing and remote influencing, and he used to move the stock market with remote influencing and trade on it. That's how deep this dude is. So I was talking to him about the state of things, and he was saying that it's the programming and the frequency sense that we are living in today is so distorted and so polluted and so crazy. It's like an asylum, if you look at it energetically. It's like a spiritual ghetto. And so people are walking around coming into contact with all of these energies and frequencies and madness. And they just get madder and madder and madder. I mean, like in the sense of insane, right? And so the vibration, there's like a frequency that's kind of enveloping the planet right now that is insane. And so you see more hostility, and people are like angry, and people are sensitive, and they're triggered, and they're right. It's like it's all anger. And so, if you don't do this work now, if you don't start to do the work of dismantling your fear, start to do the work of dismantling the imprints that your parents have given you, then you end up a part of the insane asylum. Because you can't get any perspective from it if you're immersed in it.
Wow. Yeesh. Can being in a loveless marriage transmit toxicity to the kids? We just going about our yeoman's work. You go to work, I go to work, we pay the bills. We're over each other. We're no longer in love. The family is on autopilot. The kids don't see us interacting. The kids don't see us showing affection towards each other. They just see the cold, hard mechanism of family. The gears are turning, but there's no passion in the vehicle. Oh my God, is that a form of toxicity? Go deeper.
Well, we think that it's more appropriate for children to hear us fighting than it is for them to hear us making love. Think about that.
Oof.
We think it's more appropriate for them to hear us fighting than it is to hear us making love to each other. You think about what that sets up as a paradigm, right? So, again, as I said earlier, the children will imprint whatever they experience, and whatever you call that experience, they will call it that too. So if it's loveless, if it's lacking empathy and compassion and love for each other, and you're calling that love in marriage, then they have no choice, unless something interrupts that pattern, than to go out and duplicate that. Because if you call love in marriage disconnection and disdain and just being in the VOR, right? If you call it that, then that's what they're going to call it too. That's what they're going to go find.
Damn. Do you understand how hurtful this is? Do you understand how important it is to know what you're getting into when you get into family building? Do you know what a legacy actually is? A legacy is not about accumulation. A legacy is about, watch this, the maintenance of alignment. I don't know if y'all heard what I just said. The maintenance of alignment. That is a relationship. The maintenance of alignment. So many of us get caught up on accumulating. We think who we are is defined by what we have. So if we have a lot of stuff, we must be somebody. And in the pursuit of having external things, pursuing, going, grabbing, getting, we lose, that alignment connection thing is like a muscle too. It's like the neural synaptic nerves in the brain. The more you use them, the more effective they are, the more they're alive. When you stop using those neural pathways in your brain, that's when they deteriorate. When you stop paying attention to the pathways that connect us, it's about alignment, not acquisition. The maintenance of alignment, that is relationship. You got people, watch this form of parental toxicity. You got daddies out there that are called, the silent provider. I think that's the terminology. The daddy that done did everything he was supposed to do financially. But you and your kid don't have an emotional bond. Do you understand? You and your kid don't have a relationship. But your kid got the latest Jordans. Your kid got all the fly gear, but your kid don't know you. Because you're so self-protective, you won't open up and allow your kid to meet who you really are. Your kid got a better relationship with your wallet than he does with your spirit. I think it's called the emotionalist or the silent provider. That's a form of toxicity. When you tell your son, that he gonna be a failure like his daddy. That's a form of toxicity. Hey, we got to deal with it today. Who wants to deal with it? The number to dial is 323-230-4445. You know what? Veronica, let me tell you something real quick. A lot of people want to call in, but I don't know if you can feel it. You're a little bit more sensitive than I am, but I feel the breakdown happening. I feel there's a fear of breaking down on the phone with us. Both of us is too much, goddammit. But I feel like, hell no, I'm not finna get on the radio. It'll be like they in here with us. It'll be like we can see them. Because, again, most people have learned to use the toxicity they have inherited as a generational curse as a rule book for how to engage intimately. Oh, Jesus. Veronica, do you have one more point to make before we take our next break?
I think that the only way through this is through it. And what I mean by that is the only way to begin to reconcile this stuff is to confront it at the deepest level. And that's, when you actually confront it and have a process of stepping through it, then it completely loses its grip on you. It completely loses its power over you. We are often afraid to go back into those traumatic early wounds because we think we're going to die. We think we're going to start crying and never stop. We think we're going to be on the floor in the fetal position and we'll never get up again. We believe that. So because of that, we're afraid to go back and confront it, and we just keep operating from it. But I'm here to tell you that every day I work with people around this. I work with people today around this. And we're talking about going back into initial wounding that she identified that happened at birth. A story that she got imprinted at birth that's stopping her from making $100,000 a month. We just did that today, right? Wow. That you can unwind this stuff. It's a process, and you have to, but you have to first be willing to say there's a pattern that's out of where I'm not in control. I keep reacting to something. I keep responding in a certain way. I keep being triggered, and I can't consciously decide it. Willpower is not enough. I have to actually go back at the level that it was created at to solve it. That's what it takes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, here on Dash Radio, Hot Button Radio. I gotta take a quick break, man. I gotta let you come up for air. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, you see who's in the building looking like Halloween candy. It's Whitney Tabor. She's gonna jump in on the conversation. It's going down in the town. If you want to participate, though, don't be afraid. 323-230-4610. We'll be back in 2.2 Hot Button Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of reason has returned. Whew. This show is lit. Veronica, you still there with us, baby girl? VC?
Yeah, I'm here. I can't hear very well because of the music, but I'm here.
I got you. I don't know if they needed to know that, but fine.
Okay. Sorry.
Hey, today's topic, man, is like really hitting on all cylinders, man. We got a caller. Somebody wants to share. Caller! What's your name and where you calling from? Maybe they didn't want to share. Maybe they'll call back. Listen, if you're just getting on with us right now, because I promote throughout the entire show. If you want to get on with us, all you got to do is call 323-230-4610. I know these are difficult conversations that you've probably never had with your parents. You probably never had these conversations. I mean, it's a hard conversation to broach. Right? It's a hard conversation to come to them and be like, yo, you're the problem in my life. I just recognized that through all of the relationships that rendered me the common denominator. Damn. That's a tough way to see it. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying now I listen, story time with Zoe real quick. I did not know what kind of a demon I was until I had kids. And that shit scared me. That shit frightened me, man. My son is, I'm telling you, man, he's triple fire. Sag son, right? He's got the, I think he's got the Aries moon. I mean, he's like, he got 9 planets in fire. You understand? And then I recognized, I was like, oh, shit. This is the firebender version of me. You know, the last Avatar cartoon. I'm an airbender. I'm a Gemini. My son's a Sag. He's a the fire version of me. And that's when I started to recognize, like, I'm this kid's idol. Not just his idol, but his model. You feel me? I was, wow. So I started to self-reflect as I saw him. I remember when he was playing basketball. He was young. He was like 10. And he was balling in this game in Inglewood. And then the referee called him for a foul. And he went ballistic. And he only went ballistic because I gave him the blueprint for ballistic. And I saw me when he went ballistic. So right then I had to jump on it. I was like, hold on, whoa. They won the championship. The coach pulled him out. He got a technical. The coach sat him for the rest of the game. And I seen this coach recently. And we talked about it. We reminisced. Because I looked at the coach and I did this. Yank him. Get him out of there. And sit his ass down.
Crazy.
So then, at the end of the game, they get in the championship trophies. I said, no, he don't get one.
Ooh.
And he was pissed at me because I didn't allow him to take that trophy. But I sat him down when we got to the crib and I explained to him, I can't let you have this trophy because of your behavior. If you gonna play the game and you gonna let the game take you somewhere, you can't have this kind of behavior within the framework of the game. And to this day,
he mad?
No, he respects me big time. Because he was like, Dad, that was the turning point where I had to recognize and learn, like, oh, okay. But ever since then, I recognize it's every time he lose his control, it's because he mirrors me. And I got to pull him in and make every one of those instances a teachable moment. And I got to own my responsibility for why that is a preferred method of conflict resolution.
So you're saying embarrass them. That's the preferred method?
Not necessarily embarrassing, but just if I lose my control, I put him in a position. So how did I deal? How did I deal with this situation, kid? Dad, you didn't really deal with it well. What should I have done? Dad, I mean, if on the outside looking at it, Dad, you overreacted. So Dad, you could have said this because that guy didn't mean it this way. So I made it a teachable moment. So now that's who this guy is on his basketball team.
Oh, he's Dad.
He's the guy pulling dudes to the side. But I knew if I didn't own it and say, look, the way your dad is not conducive for success for where you are or where you're going.
Okay.
See, a lot of times the toxicity comes from the lack of acknowledgement, the lack of accountability. Parents be coming from the space of I'm right and damn what you think, do what I say. Sometimes that's a form of toxicity. Whitney Tabor has joined the show.
Hey, y'all.
We're talking about
What are we talking about?
breaking up with your toxic parents.
Whoa.
How do you break up with bad mama and daddy?
I mean, one thing which is crazy that you're talking about how, you showed them after they saw your negative behavior, you showed them how to change it.
I'm still ain't shit though.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I can attest to that. You feel me?
Oh. Thanks, Whitney.
But, I gotta do that. But one thing, I mean, even in my own personal life, like I said, I'm one of those. I'm the realionaires here on the show. All I want to do is tell you what I know, because that's what I know. I had to break up with my mom when I was 22.
Wow.
22 years old. And women need their mother, right? Girls, young girls. I was 22 years old. And it was funny because I always gravitate towards your parents. Whenever something's going down, it doesn't matter how old you are. I'm 30 years old right now. And if I have some beef go down, I'm going to call mom and be like, this is what happened. What do I do? Help me fix it. There comes a time where your own intuition, your own thoughts, you know what you're doing. You know exactly what is right and what feels right. We all have that. And I was 22 years old, going through it, had my own apartment, had my little boyfriend, I had my basketball. I was killing it, right? In my eyes. Well, definitely got fired from a job and couldn't pay my rent, and some other real life started to happen, and it was my first apartment. And I had decided at the time that I no longer wanted to go to school. And my parents said, that's cool, but you gotta figure your life out. Well, I have two moms, by the way. This mom calls me. She ain't talked to me in a minute. Well, what are you even doing with your life? And I'm like, well, hello, nice to speak with you as well. Hater, how you doing?
Wow.
So I told her, I said, well, if you really want to know what's going on in my life, because I'm a truth person, I want to speak the truth. I said, shit ain't going that good. Just got fired, quit school, my boyfriend ain't shit. I'm dealing with a lot right now. Thanks for asking. So I said, I just had to ask my dad for help with my rent. That's how bad I'm doing. And it was really hard for me to do that. I'm very much, I got this. I can take care of myself. I'm the one who signed this lease. I got this. First apartment. She straight up told me, you shouldn't have to ask your father. You're 22. I'm 22 years old. That ain't shit.
Right.
As far as life goes.
Right.
And the way she talked to me and the way that she came at me was so crazy that I instantly was like, okay. This was my voice of reason.
Did you go off?
I kind of went off on her.
There we go. Here we go. Let's get to it.
So
Let's
I kind
get
of
to
went
the
off
beans
on her.
and greens right here.
I went off on her, right? So I went off on her like as much as you could with a person who respects their parents.
Right.
I kind of went off on her. Then I hung up. I got all when I get so irritated,
I already know. Yeah.
I can't talk. So I just got so upset that I was like, I gotta go. Click. Called my brother, my other voice of reason. He said, yo, sometimes, and this is where it came in. My brother said, Whit, sometimes there's a point in your life where you outgrow your parents. You guys have said this to me.
Yeah.
There comes a time, my brother said, that you are now the adult and they are the child. My brother told me this, and I was 22, he was 26 at the time. And I was like, huh? Like, that didn't make sense. And the nail really hit when, 3 or 4 years later go by, and we're still having the same issues with my mom. All 5 of her kids are having the same issue with her, but she don't want to see it. She doesn't want to hear it because she's mama. You better respect me. Y'all don't talk to me crazy. All of those things, because I'm the parent. You're supposed to listen to everything I say. She didn't want to hear it, so that's when the cuss outs and the crazy and all that, and that's when I was really done. I mean, we have a great relationship now. I just know where to put her.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there comes a time where you do have to be strong enough in your own, because I was, like I said, I was 22. I was scared as hell. Like, am I ever going to talk to her again? Because she talked to me crazy. I can't. Can I cut her off? And when I heard those words from my brother, it was like, okay, you know what? I'm done. I hold her. It was crazy. It was, it was like, it wasn't like a, I don't respect you as much, but it definitely was. There's another fun little icing on the cake. Ma, I love you. You already know I love you, Ma, if you're listening. But
story time with Whitney.
Story time, y'all. 3 months after that, and this is where I really was like, oh, like, shut your ass up, Ma. Like, didn't tell her that, by the way. Don't ever say that. I thought it real hard in my head. But I told her she had to call my pop-pop. She was 40 some odd years old. She had to call my pop-pop a couple months later and ask for help for her mortgage. And I said, so how the hell are you cussing me out when I'm just figuring it out? I've never had to ask anybody else, by the way, since that day for help with paying any kind of bills in my life.
Whoa.
So I was like, when she said that, it was so hypocritical that I was like, shut your ass up. It's certain things,
Say it again, Whitney.
Shut your ass up. Sometimes you got to
shut your bullshit ass up.
Mama and your daddy and your boyfriend and your kid. Hey,
Okay, listen.
shut your
Let's
ass
not listen
up.
to Whitney
Hey.
right now. We're not telling you to cuss your parents out. No, but sometimes you really got to check them.
You got to check them.
Sometimes you got to check them. You know? Damn it. I'm impoverished, mom, dad, because you had a scarcity belief system.
That's a big one. That's a big one. I work with clients around this all the time.
I inherited toxic money beliefs from yo ass.
It's huge.
You think
It's
making
huge.
fried bologna sandwiches is the way we supposed to live?
Nah.
What about that?
I'm not into fried
It's
bologna.
huge.
Listen,
huge.
a lot of people, and I'm gonna throw it back to you, Veronica. I want you to say something around, the impoverished belief system, the limiting beliefs, the scarcity beliefs, the lack beliefs. Oh, but then there's self-compromising beliefs. There's abusive love beliefs. We talked about it a little bit earlier, where we talked about I inherited this form of love because that's all I was exposed to.
Ew.
So trauma is okay.
Yeah.
Right? Perpetual trauma. Is that somebody on there for us? Let's get them real
we
quick.
Got a caller?
I'm sorry, I'm going to come back to you, Veronica.
We got a caller, y'all.
Caller, you're on the line. What's your name and where you calling from? Voice of Reason, live.
Y'all can't hear.
Hey, this is Miss Lips.
Oh, Miss Lips. What's up, Pin?
This is Miss Lips.
What's happening, girlie?
Wounded pussy.
Uh-oh. What are
What?
you talking about? Here we go.
Some-
Prepare yourself,
Did
ladies
she
and
say-
gentlemen.
If y'all, yeah.
I am the queen of wounded pussy, okay? But I walk in my victory, okay?
The queen
But-
of wounded
That's right.
pussies.
Is that?
Ladies and gentlemen.
You gotta go deeper.
I give you.
Speaking of pussies, you gotta go deeper, Miss Lips. I don't know what you're talking about, girl.
Whitney said you got to go deeper, speaking of pussies.
Hey, that's what.
Boom, boom.
Hey.
Go ahead, Miss Lips.
Our parents are toxic because our grandparents is toxic. And
Speak
then they
on
got
it.
the white blood in them.
Oh, hold on. I got white blood in me.
Uh-oh. You speaking to the Caucasian and Whitney.
Damn. Hold up.
White people are toxic.
White people are toxic?
Say more. Go deeper.
They are. I believe that, like I said, when I always talk about the village, we fed the village with water. We put the buckets on our heads. The women, we all came together and we went and got the water. We took care of the children and made sure the men were straight. It was once upon a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. When we was a village. But the white people, in some cases, because all of us ain't slaves or wasn't slaves, but I believe that when the white person divided us up is when we became very toxic. We had to learn how to survive. And I'm pretty sure we had to
I see what you're saying. I see what you mean. You're just saying the life we were subjected to accept.
Right.
And they set the rules for that. And now from moving forward from that kind of conditioning put in place by them made us into some very toxic beings.
Yes. Case in point, my grandmother is the darkest of her family. And I have an auntie that's the lightest of my family. Both of them are biracial. My grandmother got the blue eyes. My auntie got the skin. And my family today is still divided from that. Still toxic from that. They don't love me because I'm not as light as my cousins over there that's darker than me. So the whole case, and my mother chose my father because he was light-skinned. She had no business being with him. But she wanted to keep that in mind because she was a dark woman and she wanted a light-skinned man. But she didn't know how toxic he was and how toxic his generation was. So this whole toxic shit goes way, way back. It's way back.
Now, let me tell you something.
It's deeper than that.
You talking such real shit right now, Miss Lips. I'm about to give a Big Mama story. Thanks for the call, baby girl. We're going to talk to you in a little bit.
All right, boo.
I appreciate. Damn. I had to beat up one of my cousins for that same shit
I'm sorry.
at Big Mama's house.
Oh, here we go.
My cousin who runs our restaurant in Pasadena, I had to beat his ass because Big Mama said, "Here go my favorite grandkids. They high, yellow, and light."
Ugh.
I'm over there. I'm over there all the time. I'm going, "Hey, bitch, I'm light too." But she said it. Here go my favorite, and she said it at Christmas in front of all the grands and great grands.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So you know what I did? I punched that nigga in both his eyes.
Ooh. Boop, boop.
Blacked him up. This nigga came in with shades. He had 2 black eyes. It was like he had on a pair of Ray-Bans. What happened to Darren? This nigga over here happened. I'm just saying, you're unfair to niggas. I'm taking it out on the niggas you love.
Damn.
That's just how I got down.
Mm-hmm.
You gonna, Big Mama, you gonna say that in front of all your grandkids? Okay, I'm gonna fuck him up this evening.
Damn.
Story time with Zoe.
You weren't the light. You light skinned as shit. Zoe got green eyes. What the hell?
I was like, wait a minute.
You help.
My mother is your first grandbaby. So you gonna shit on all your grands in here? You didn't give nobody no greeting.
Dang.
And then I beat up the other brother.
Hilarious.
He gets it too.
Hilarious.
But I love these guys, man, for real. Today we chop it up. I love these guys.
Yeah.
But I had to kick their ass.
That's
I just
great.
had to do it. Just to be defiant towards Big Mama. Me and Big Mama had wars.
Oh,
Trying to tell you, better get to Rebirth the Seeds and read the whole story. Me and Big Mama had wars. Who would have thought that the devil would be Big Mama's angel? That's what she said on her deathbed when I walked in that motherfucker.
Ooh.
Because I helped her when she was dying.
Yeah. Hey.
But shit, I had to whoop them kids' ass just to let her know, like, you don't do that shit to the rest of your grands. True or false? Cancer rates correlate to the degree of closeness to our parents. Woo.
What?
This is real shit. John Hopkins research.
Wait a minute.
Look up the John.
again,
They
say it
say
again.
cancer rates correlate to the degree of closeness to our parents.
So the closer. Wait, hold on.
The closer you are, the less of a chance you have of getting cancer.
Dang. Well, I'm.
Wow.
Yeesh.
Interesting.
Yeesh.
So look at John Hopkins. Which one of y'all can call me and let me know when I'm gonna get some cancer?
But
'cause
watch this though.
Dang.
I know this research is dealing with the closeness as it pertains to healthy relationships. It can't possibly be talking about a close relationship with a toxic parent. Because there's something
Right.
called the mind-body connection, the psychosomatic connection. If the source of your trauma is your mama, if the source of your drama is coming from moms and dad, that's making you sick too, because stress releases cortisol in the body.
Yeah.
When cortisol is released,
You get fat.
you get fat. Not only that, your arteries get clogged. Shit start breaking down when you're stressed.
Right.
Yeesh. How do you let go of them motherfuckers? How do I break up
How do you break up?
with my broken mama? That's what we're talking about today. Veronica, I know you're itching. I can hear
Yeah.
your tail wagging. Speak on it.
Yeah. Well, I think that absolutely health challenges get handed down, and you're right. Most health challenges actually begin, I would say, in the energy field that we're in and in our minds, right? So a lot of that can get handed down. Like if you have a parent that's a hypochondriac, right, then you tend to, or even if you had parents that, let's say, they only rewarded you with what felt like love by feeding you, and that was a proxy. Right, then you'll end up overeating because it gives you the feeling of love. It's the replacement of the experience of love. And that's how, right, you think love, you think food. You think love, you think food. That's how people end up overeating. So a lot of things can happen both behaviorally in terms of what parents do in the environment, but a lot can also happen just because stuff gets handed down in certain ways. But I want to also get back to this piece about money, because I think that's a really important one, and I think people have no idea how that one operates. So I deal with that all the time, every day in my business, right? In my work with people, I help them uncover the root story, belief system, identity, thought that stops them from making money or selling in their business. I help them uncover that. And you would be stunned at how much, like, all of our imprinting around money usually comes from our parents. And if you were to look at your dad's ideas around money and your mom's ideas around money, or if there was an absence of either of them, what the early proxies were for them. So it could have been grandma, whatever. But usually you'll find that your primary care person is the person whose beliefs you've adopted. So, for example, when I did this work around my own money issues, right? Well, you think about my situation. My dad was a Black Panther who believed in overthrowing the government and robbing and stealing because it was a revolution, right? So he thought that he was sort of Robin Hood, but it was all couched in violence. So money initially was couched in violence for me. Then I have my mother, who had a ton of fear around money. The one that raised me. I actually have two mothers. But my mom that raised me had a ton of fear around money. She was always in anxiety around it. And then my biological mother always felt like everything was a sacrifice, right? So those three points ended up coming into my space. So I always felt like money was a sacrifice. I always felt a lot of fear around it. And I always felt like this kind of a hostage situation about getting it. And so if you'll look at your patterning around money, it usually is coming from your parents or the people that raised you. That's exactly how it gets handed down. So now you think about how we've been programmed in our community as the owned and not the owners, and how we've been trained as consumers and not creators. And we get trained, right, that our women, at least in the inner city, are meant to rely on the government as a proxy for
that's crazy.
For finances.
Government daddy.
And I'm also going to say, I'm going to dare say, there's a lot of apathy amongst our Black men around money, and we make up whatever story we want around why the apathy is there, and we justify it any way we want, but it's still apathy. Because if you weren't apathetic about it, and it weren't that big of a deal, if money didn't really mean anything, then just get up and make it. Because if you're really honestly neutral about it, you can just, you're neutral. It's neither good nor bad. You just get up and make it. But when we justify not making it with a whole litany of excuses about it, that means that we're in a reaction to it, right? So there's all kinds of dynamics that have sort of been programmed into our community about the issue of money, and it comes down intergenerationally. And because it gets concentrated and it becomes prevalent in our communities, I did a lot of financial coach training at some of the toughest cities in America. And when we were in Bon Secours, when we were in Baltimore, and we were training coaches, financial coaches, to coach folks to have financial solvency in the inner city, they were saying things like they would take people out. You know, a lot of brothers and sisters had never been outside of a 5-mile radius of where they grew up. And so when you think about what that means from a financial standpoint, because we're in there teaching financial literacy, how do you pay your taxes so that you can now pay your child support? Like, how do you begin to construct a financial life where you are accountable to it, right? We were teaching coaching skills around that so that we could empower people. But people hadn't even been outside a 5-mile radius of their neighborhood. So you think about how so you have all this financial dysfunction, you have all this emotional dysfunction, and now it's concentrated because you're all living together in a community, so it's self-reinforcing.
Wow.
Right? So it festers and it breeds in our community. But again, because it's the water in which we swim, we justify it to ourselves, and we say that's the way it is, because we've never experienced anything different. So when we come into contact with something that's different than our experience, we automatically reject it.
Wow.
Right? We automatically reject it because it's not our lived experience.
Man, this is heavy. How to fire your toxic parents before they poison your ass. Yikes. Woo! We got callers on the line. If you want to participate and share your story about your learned toxicity that you got from your parent, mom, dad, or other, I don't know. Call us right now, 323-230-4610. Crazy, crazy. Are mothers' sins that are committed against her child easier to forgive than the sins of a father? Yikes. This is heavy shit, man. We're digging in people's soul right now. Caller, what's your name and where you calling from? Get at us.
Yeah. Mo?
Yeah, who is this?
This A Ron.
Hey, Ron. Hey, Ron. What up, hey, Ron?
Man, what's happening, y'all? What is going on?
You already know. We in here turned up, right?
Man, I see, man. I keep catching the half, so I just keep getting off work late, man. But back to the parent, I got a question to ask you all. Like, what if you're dating a girl and they have a child, and you notice that the way they're raising them or the things that they're saying to the child it's just not good to them, or it's just not right. And the
That's
reason
tough.
why I say that is because I dated a girl, and her mother was a holy roller. She was a big on church, right? All that, man, all that. I've called in about this before, but the daughter was her total opposite. And it's been a couple of times where her daughter would speak to me about small things that she didn't want me to tell her mom. And then it's just like, after we broke up, I always wondered, what did her mom say to her about me? Because her mama could say one thing.
You know what she said?
But
you know what her mama said? I'm going to tell you what her mama said.
Yeah.
That boy is the devil. She Bobby Boucher'd you. He the devil.
Right.
Don't bring him up here. He evil. That is the devil.
Right. You could say one thing. You could say one thing and see something totally different.
Wow.
Because her daughter told me, she's like, yeah, I like you better than my mom's last boyfriend, you know, because he was lazy and he wouldn't do nothing. I ain't like him. So you're better and all this other stuff. So I've always wanted to know, what did she tell her daughter about me? It's crazy.
Man, hey, that's a tough one. We're going to do a show, a tutorial on the Voice of Reason, how to date a woman with kids. Hey, don't get it twisted. I got topics, okay? Don't be afraid to tune in because I'm real about this here. We got to have a conversation, man.
Is it, last thing, am I wrong if I say that I don't want to date a girl with children? Am I selfish in saying that?
It just depends on where you're coming from, man. I mean, to each his own, but it just depends on where you're coming from. A lot of times, let me just say this. A lot of times, dads or men who step in and become surrogate dads in a cohabitation situation are really the bridge and lifesavers for a lot of kids.
Yeah, I agree.
For a lot of kids whom the relationship with mom and dad ain't cool, and say this dude is just dating, say it's just a cohabitation situation.
Right.
But the fact that he's there, especially if he's a good man, a respectful man, a man that has some kind of some quality in his character, some integrity, some real shit, man, that kid is going to benefit from that relationship with mom and that man. Now, here's the drawback. If mom ain't over her bullshit, if she's not accountable, she could run that dude off, and that could be even more detrimental because the child forms a bond with the quality in that dude.
Yes.
So, you see what I'm saying? There's a lot of ways to look at that. So
that's how I felt.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
So, very tough situation, man. Very tough situation.
I think it just depends on the situation. But honestly, that's how I feel about dating a dude with children. Is I'm cool because I don't want those kids to get bonded, or more so myself because I don't know those kids. Those kids might think I am the witch of the West or whatever. But me, any kind of kid that comes around me, I know for a fact I'm going to latch.
You're going to love on them.
I'm going to make sure that I'm good. You know, I'll probably try to go to basketball games. Their daddy might not be shit, and I'll still want to be like, hey, how is My ex-husband.
How's little Rufus?
How's that little fucker doing? You know, like that's just me. Even my ex-husband, right? He had 2 little sisters.
Oh wow.
They're 4 and 6 or something like that when I was dating him. You know, we divorced, done. I ain't talked to him in 5 years, 7 years. I still to this day often think like, dang man, I wonder
how they doing.
Are they okay? Because they were dealing with some toxic parents. Man, them little girls had a white mama and a black dad. Pops was just out wilding out all the time. These little girls had dreaded up hair. One is 5 and not potty trained. You know, the mama's at home all day not doing nothing. So I felt like I had to try to instill some sort of something, teach them how to brush their hair or brush their teeth or certain things. So it's like sometimes, man, it's scary to be even. Kids are fragile. People don't understand. Adding those little things in the mix. Ugh.
Crazy.
And they remember everything.
Oh, yeah. They're little elephants. Hey, man. Hey, Ron. We appreciate the call. Thanks for tuning in to The Voice of Reason. We appreciate it. Thank you, brother. So let's start winding it down, wrapping it up, summarizing.
Winding it down.
Veronica.
Yeah.
Can you break up, divorce, get rid of your toxic parent without hurting them? Can you break up without ruining the relationship? Can you keep the relationship? What does it look like? What does breaking up with firing a toxic parent look like? And just kind of walk us through the process real quick. What is the first thing you got to do?
Well, I think, first of all, I think that you have to be in communication in such a way that, in other words, it's like, can we sit down and have an honest conversation? I'd like to understand, here's what I need from you in our relationship today. Here's what I actually need. I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. I'd like to understand what you need. And if they can have that conversation, then you could design some alliance and alignment around that. If they can't have that conversation, then you can either internally decide to love them at a distance, and you don't even have to say anything about it because your intent will speak volumes. Or you can let them know. I mean, it depends on you and depends on the situation. So it's first putting it on the table and saying, you know, there's some things that ain't working. I'm wondering if you can hear me. If they can't, then it's just time to let them know that it's time. Because sometimes when people are too toxic, when you try to communicate with them, you become the problem.
Right, it's an attack.
Right, not the issue. Yeah. Right, you're trying to put the issues on the table, but sometimes people are so egoic that you become the problem. So if they're so invested in that, then you kind of have to let it go, you know, because sometimes they're not going to respond to your nagging and your bickering, but they will respond to no contact.
Oh,
right? They'll respond to no contact.
Wow,
definitely will.
Wow, I love it. Whitney,
Summarize for me personally, I mean, yes, they are your parents, and that whole blood is thicker than water stuff to me in my years has kind of been like, okay, guys, whoever thought of that, good job, but I'm not really into it. I mean, whatever doesn't add value, honestly, whatever doesn't add value to your life, whether it be your parent, your spouse, your drink of choice, your job, your whatever, cut it out. Cut it out like a toxic sore. You know, you're not going to keep a cancer in your body, and I'm sorry, we don't get to choose our parents. We don't get to pick, you know, the families that we were brought into, and sometimes we don't vibe with them. We don't mix with them. So I say, without hesitation, you don't owe anybody an excuse to better yourself. So just like OT Genesis said, cut it.
So I'm a weirdo. Maybe I'm wrong here. My thought process is never disconnect before lesson learned. A lot of times we disconnect from toxic parents or what we describe as toxic parents before we get the lesson in the interaction. There's always a lesson in every interaction. And sometimes we disconnect just based off of emotion. You understand? This doesn't feel right. And that carries over into our intimate relationships. will start, stop, a myriad of relationships based on how good they feel. And I always say, just because it doesn't feel good to you doesn't necessarily mean it isn't good for you.
Hey.
So my thing is, get the lesson before you fire them, because the reason why there's a rub between you, that rub is the lesson. That friction is the lesson. And you got to get that before you bounce out, because when you bounce out before you get that, you're going to reenact that in the intimate side of it. You see what I'm saying? So get that lesson first. Once you get that lesson, then you go into the practice of boundaries. This is when you're hurting my feelings. Right here at this area, when you talk about A, B, C, D, F, G, this is when you're disrespecting me. When you behave like this, that, and the third, you start building boundaries based on that. This is when you start to marginalize me. When you say A, B, C, D, right? This is when you're comparing me to my brothers and sisters, which is disrespectful to me. You start building boundaries based off self-awareness. You don't build boundaries based off of comfort. See, Veronica talked about it earlier with security. You're in pursuit of security, and security is not going to teach you what you're supposed to learn about yourself. It's going to isolate and insulate whatever wound and keep it open. That's when you're in wound maintenance, when you're in search of security. Then you teach the kid, you teach your daughter how to search out somebody that's going to maintain her wounds. This is when you start dating coping mechanisms. So don't fire them before you understand why there's difficulty in the relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll be listening to the Voice of Reason on Hot Button Radio. Today's show has been absolutely monkey lava. If you agree, disagree,
Monkey grease.
Monkey grease, yes. If you agree, disagree, it's all good. Follow us on Instagram. I'm at Mr. Zowhat. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe. Please. Over 20,000 subscribers and nearly 3 million views. The Zowhat Voice of Reason Get Down is real. Follow us over there. Get to my GoFundMe page, www.gofundme.com/Zoe Williams. Support. I will be at Kentucky State University on the 13th, day before Valentine's. I'll be at KSU teaching a healthy relationship workshop. They brought me back for the second year. We need your support. Do it that way. Whitney, where can they find you? How can they support you?
Hey guys, so like I've been saying, every Saturday from 12 to 1, you can catch me right here on Dash Radio, Hot Button Radio, The Plug Radio. Please follow the Instagram for all the updates. You can find me on social media at Miss Tabor, Team Tabor. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Also, if anybody's in the area and is trying to get their booties in shape, I have a trainer who is doing deals on his, his app that he has. Jared Janako, I'm just shouting you out. Ladies, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we can do some little booty workouts, kickboxing. I've been getting it popping. So just to let y'all know, 2017, Instagram's about to be fire. So
I'm going to come and watch. Veronica Conway, where can they find you? How can they support your movement?
Yeah, so a couple of things. If you want to resolve some of the issues that we're talking about, you can get Black Mastery. Also, I'm thinking about offering some single issue breakthrough sessions. So if you know you have a wound that is really, that you need to get to the bottom of, you keep doing the same things over and over again, you keep making the same bad choices over and over again, I'm looking to open up a few slots with people to do a single issue breakthrough session. It may take 2 sessions to resolve whatever the issue is, but we get it done. We get it done. So if you're interested in that, then email me at veronica@veronicaconway.com and just let me know a little bit about what the issue is, and shoot me some times that would work for you to potentially schedule a brief time to talk. So veronica@veronicaconway.com, and you too can heal all of your early childhood wounding.
Love it. Listen, we got to go. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. I'll see you guys Friday. No show Wednesday.
Okay.
Show Friday. Holla at you. I'll be back.
Peace.